What's up, everybody? 47 driver here again. I'll make a quick video on some more advanced maneuvering for the DCS CH-47F. Talk about a couple things today. Two-wheel taxi slash two-wheel pinnacle concepts. This is something that's going to be really difficult to do, specifically the pinnacles landing in DCS, and that's in reference to the you guys have seen a lot of those cool videos or pictures of Chinooks landing on top of mountains on ridge lines and kicking dudes off or loading troops or whatever. That is a task that is very, very crew intensive. Pilots up front, we can't see anything behind us, so you're hanging off a cliff. You have zero hover references with the ground, so you're relying on your crew members to make sure the aft gear is still over the pinnacle, calling the altitudes, and making sure you set down safely. So not something I'm going to attempt to show you per se, because I won't be able to do it. I'm not that good at flying DCS, so you guys can go out and try it. I'm going to give you the concepts and how it should work. So we'll talk about a couple things like that today, and yeah, see how it goes. Keep this one short and sweet as well. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to talk about two-wheel operations in general, which is going to include the two-wheel pinnacle operations and two-wheel taxi and stuff like that. You ever see Chinooks drive around on just the aft gear with the nose up in the air? I'm going to talk about that. So the way that's done is you're going to reference the longitudinal stick position indicator right here in the center of the screen. And I do want to point out I'm trying some new formatting with my output resolution here. I play on a 49-inch ultra wide 32:9 aspect ratio, and I understand a lot of people don't have that, and it might look pretty awful on YouTube if you don't have a monitor like that. So I'm downscaling it to 16:9, so hopefully more of you have monitors that can display this in full screen without black bars and actually read what's on display here. So let me know in the comments, give me some feedback if you guys like this resolution better, and I'll keep doing it. So longitudinal stick position indicator is in the center of the screen right here. It's gonna you can't tell where the flight controls are neutral in a tandem rotor helicopter, and it's very important that they are neutral when you're on the ground and when you're doing stuff. So this is going to give you indications as to where your cyclic is longitudinally. So I'm going to move forward on the cyclic. You'll see this moves forward, and you would never do this in the real helicopter while you're on the ground, so don't do that. Move it aft, and it'll move aft. So where it is right now is supposed to represent the neutral position, which is kind of looks like would be like right there, but could just be my head angle. And what you're going to do for a lot of two-wheel based maneuvers is you're going to utilize and these tick marks are all inches. All right, so you got neutral, you got 1 inch forward, 2 inches forward. Once again, don't do this, and et cetera, et cetera. So what you're going to use for these two-wheel maneuvers is 2 inches aft. So I'm going to talk about that, and I'll show you what it's going to do. So I'm going to leave the park and brake set right now, and real quick on the park and brake, the way that you set and reset the park and brake. So I'm just going to tap the wheel brakes, park and brake will release. I'm going to hold the brakes, pull out on the park and brake, release the brakes, and then let go of the park and brake handle. That's how you set the brakes. So what I'm going to do here is leave the brakes set for now. I'm going to pull in my aft cyclic as I'm pulling into thrust to about the 2-inch mark. And it may be a little less in DCS, I'm not sure. I'm going to keep the cyclic there at that aft position, and then slowly keep just adding a little bit by little bit of power, and it's going to pick the nose right up off the ground. And I've got a little bit of yawing motion, and I can tell you it's because once again I forgot the AFCS. Not as important for this, but what I'm going to do here is pause the sim. Gosh, I didn't show you what we're doing. So this is the two-wheel kind of profile of the Chinook. So aft gear is on the ground, nose is off the ground. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this profile, including those cool pinnacle landings up in the mountains like you see behind me or really all around me. And you can also drive taxi the helicopter around in this configuration. And what that allows you to do is not use the power steering. If you had some sort of hydraulic issue with the power steering, or you had any sort of other issue with power steering, you can drive and ground taxi the helicopter just like this. I don't know how well I'm going to do trying it in DCS, but we'll give it a try. And essentially, yeah, you can drive around with the nose off the ground and use yaw, i.e. the pedals, which I know I told you never to use, but this is the exception because you're not you don't have all 4 landing gear on the ground to steer the helicopter around. So the reason why this works is, without getting too deep in the weeds here, is essentially adding that aft cyclic that I did is going to collectively and differentially change the pitch between the fore and aft rotor system completely. So it's actually going to, as I add aft cyclic, decrease overall collective pitch in the aft system and increase it in the forward system, which allows the nose to come off the ground without the rest of the helicopter coming off the ground. It also adds weight to the aft landing gear, which will come into play later when we get some dash and LCT functionality, because it will keep weight on the weight on wheels switches, which will essentially allow the aircraft to function as if it was on the ground, which is good for the dash and the LCTs. But I'll talk more on that on those videos when we discuss those things. So you can see, yep, nose is off the ground, and with the park and brake set, I can just hold this all day, and it's going to hold what she's got, and it's very, very important to have that park and brake set when you're attempting to do these yourselves, especially up in the trying to do it up in the mountains. Once again, I'm not going to attempt that because I don't have my homie back here hanging off the ramp or hanging out the cabin door, looking at the aft gear that I can't see and telling me how far it is off the ground, and even kind of telling me where I am in time and space. So it will be ugly and I'll crash and you guys will all make fun of me. So I'm just not going to do it. So I'm going to keep it paused for just a second here and trying to see what happens if I flip the AFCS on and a pause. It's not going to work. So I'm going to attempt to unpause it and turn this on because it might make it a little easier. Real world, having the AFCS off when you pick the nose up like this really isn't going to make that much of a difference because the aircraft is still you're still on the weight on wheel switches, and it's going to fly essentially the same because you're not off the ground. So I'm going to unpause it and hit that switch, hopefully without crashing. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to unpause it here. I'll land the nose, and then I'll mess with that, and we'll try some 2-wheel taxi, and I'll show that off. All right, gently set the nose down. So you're taking that. Essentially, what you want to do to take the nose down is not necessarily just let the cyclic come forward. You're going to take that power out, and that's going to lower the nose. So I want to try and maintain. Let me turn this AFCS on. What I want to try and do here is you just kind of watch the stick position indicator, pull the nose up, and hopefully this having the AFCS will at least help with the yaw. Once again, wouldn't be an issue in the real helicopter, but it seems like it yaws a little bit when you leave the AFCS off in this sim. So I'm adding the power. I'm going to pick the nose up. Essentially, to send the nose down, essentially what I'm doing now to control my pitch attitude is I'm leaving the cyclic where it is, and I'm just either reducing or increasing the thrust lever. So I'm reducing it now, and the nose is starting to gently come down. And if I need to increase it for whatever reason, the pitch angle, for aerodynamic braking purposes, if I'm doing some sort of 2-wheel roll-on landing, I can increase the thrust, maintaining that cyclic stick position, and it will bring the nose up. I don't know why it's yawing on me, but don't exceed 20 degrees nose high. You can have a blade strike with the ground, which you don't want. So I'm taking the thrust out, and as I touch the forward landing gear down, before I take all the thrust out, I just let that cyclic come back to neutral, and I slowly reduce the thrust. So now we'll talk about moving, and I don't know how this is going to go. I haven't tried it before, but we're going to try it. It seems like they've modeled the 2-wheel attitude pretty well, and the flight controls required to achieve that. So maybe, just maybe, I could get away with doing some 2-wheel taxi here. So Same concept. I'm going to add that aft cyclic. I'm going to pick the nose up, but I don't want to pick it up very high. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold the toe brakes. So I'm holding the toe brakes because I don't want to roll backwards. You can back taxi in the Chinook. You can taxi backwards on the two wheels like that, but I don't want to do that right now. So I'm going to pick the nose up very gently with that 2 inches aft of cyclic position. Keep adding the thrust, keep adding the thrust, keep adding the thrust until it comes off the ground. There's the nose. So now I'm going to release the brakes and I'm going to fly the thrust, keeping the nose off the ground. And you're not going to have it as high off the ground if you're doing the two-wheel taxi until you get some speed going, because she will want to roll backwards. So you can see we're moving forward. I'm going to kind of hold what I got here, go to external view. So yep, we're driving forward just like she would. That is really cool that they modeled that properly. And it's a little tough to get her going sometimes because once again the nose is off the ground. Your lift vector is kind of going backwards. But once you just fly that throttle properly, she'll start rolling on you. And the way that you increase your forward speed without touching the nose down is you keep that aft cyclic in, but you let out a little bit of the thrust. And she'll come, the nose will dip a little bit and you'll start picking up a little bit of that ground speed. I don't think you're going to get super fast in the DCS version. Maybe you will, but it's just cool that it's modeled in the first place. And how you would turn, because once again we're doing this without power steering, is you would actually use your pedals, like I said, not to do when you're on the ground. But you can in this configuration because once again you've got power applied to the aircraft in terms of the thrust input, and it's not going to damage anything having that pitch in the blades at this point. So I'm going to continue coming forward. And then once again, you can see I'm not very nose high off the ground. It almost kind of looks like I've got all four wheels on the ground. And I'm slowing down here, but I don't, right? So nose is just barely off the ground. I'm going to try to steer us onto the runway here in just a second. So I'm using my outside reference here down through my chin bubble to kind of look at my speed, my ground speed. And it's very slow in this. It's just the nature, I think, of the sim. Once again, cool that they modeled it at all. But to turn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip the nose just to get a little bit of speed, because you don't want to try and turn at a stop. That will break things. So I got a little bit of forward speed now, and I want to go nose right, tail left. So I'm just going to, a little bit of right pedal while I'm going forward. And you'll see the aircraft with the gear off the ground, no power steering, is turning. Just like the real one would. Very, very cool. Yeah, so you can see now it seems like I've got a good amount of forward speed, and I can nose right, tail left using the pedals, not the power steering, just like I would in the real helicopter. And to stop, if I'm going really fast, I can add a bump of thrust. It'll stop me, and then I can set the nose right back down using that thrust, and then taking the cyclic out, and there we go. So that's pretty cool, and that is the same concept that you're going to use just with the parking brake set, but in terms of where your flight controls go and how you're maneuvering and manipulating the flight controls, that's going to be the same concept that you're going to apply to the two-wheel pinnacle landings up on the mountains. Once again, I'm not going to try that. I'm just not I'm not skilled like that. But if you guys are better than me, which you probably are, you know, that's how you do it. So make sure your park and brake is set. And that's also how you could two-wheel taxi if you don't want to use your power steering. I know the power steering is a little buggy right now. At least it seems to be on my end, so maybe that'll be the preferred method of taxi for me from here on out. Another thing that you can do with that is in the event of an engine failure, you can conduct a two-wheel roll-on landing using that exact same concept. You're going to fly this thing down a runway just like it would be an airplane. Keeping your speed up around 60 knots or so, touch the aft gear down, and then maintain that same flight profile and attitude that I just showed you in order to aerodynamically brake the aircraft, and that will allow you to use minimal power if you're really at high altitude or you're heavy and you've had an engine failure. You may not have enough power to come to a hover and terminate an approach normally, so you have to do kind of a higher speed landing. And that's how you do it, and that's how you slow the helicopter down, because the brakes aren't going to do it. and also the brakes will dip the nose down and cause the forward landing or forward rotor system to hit the ground potentially. So you use that two-wheel flight attitude to do that. So that's all for this one. I wanted to keep it pretty quick. I figured I'd show that off because I know a lot of you guys have asked about the whole two-wheel taxi thing and the pinnacle landing thing, all that stuff. It's that same concept that I just showed you. So hopefully you guys can add that to your toolbox and apply that to the game and have some fun with it. So thanks again. I really appreciate all the feedback, all the comments, all the subscriptions, the views. It's been way more than I would have ever expected. It really means a lot to me. Thank you guys very much, and plan on some more videos soon. Thanks again.